Good evening. Welcome to the September 5th edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. If you're here in chambers with us tonight or watching at home, we're glad you've joined us. As is our tradition, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose,
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit. Here. Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover,
Here.
Commissioner Tully,
Here.
Commissioner Davenport.
Here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Item 3 on our agenda tonight is proclamations. So most of the time when the mayor speaks, he's one of 7 voices, generally all equal. Sits in the middle of the room and tries to run the show a little bit, but generally has the same kind of stature within policy making and direction to the village as everyone else. But we do have mayoral proclamations, and they are an opportunity that I sometimes take, and others certainly before me have taken, to lend a little bit of village stature to issues or people or events that are worthwhile or that we believe are worth noting. So we have 2 such proclamations this evening. First one considers National Hunger Action Month. Whereas nutrition-related conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure significantly decrease Americans' lifespans and quality of life, leading to millions of deaths per year and millions of sick, disabled, and cognitively impaired individuals. Whereas food security and lack of access to healthy foods contribute to the development of various nutrition-related illnesses, and children facing hunger are more likely to experience developmental delay, difficulties in school, and experience social and behavioral problems. Whereas, according to Feeding America, just over 1 million people in Illinois are facing hunger, and of them, approximately 315,000 are children. Whereas increased healthy food access and food security in Downers Grove enables residents of all ages, ethnicities, and cultures to lead happier, more productive, and more active lives, helps children develop to their fullest potential, and supports thriving local communities. Whereas food banks across the country, including local Fish Food Pantry, West Suburban Community Food Pantry, People's Resource Center, local churches, and others, work not only to meet the needs of those in their community, but also to raise awareness and bring attention to the issue of hunger and food insecurity, and encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in their community. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as National Hunger Action Month in Downers Grove, and encourage all residents to find opportunities to donate to, volunteer for, or otherwise help our local food support systems, such as Downers Grove Area Fish, the West Suburban Community Pantry, People's Resource Center, local churches, and others, helping to promote food access and improve food security wherever possible. Dated this 5th day of September, 2023, Downers Grove, Illinois. The second proclamation this evening, which has to do with suicide prevention. Whereas according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among young people between ages 10 and 34, and one of the leading causes of all deaths in Illinois. Whereas almost 5 times as many people die by suicide than in alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents. Whereas according to the CDC, last year nearly 49,500 people died by suicide across the United States, a rise of 2.6% from 2021. Whereas just one suicide often impacts hundreds of additional people, including family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and community members, with 1 in 5 of those affected reporting that the experience had a devastating and lifelong lasting impact. Whereas nearly 76% of communities did not have enough mental health providers to serve their residents in 2022. Whereas September is known globally as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, providing a dedicated time to come together around a difficult topic, raise the visibility of mental health resources and suicide prevention services available in our community, further the public conversation about mental health, raise awareness of the impact of suicide, help destigmatize the conversation, and help connect people with the appropriate support services. Whereas organizations such as DuPage Crisis Services, NAMI DuPage, and others serve on the front lines of a war that many refuse to discuss, as stigma regarding suicide and mental health issues remains prevalent. Whereas the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides free and confidential emotional support to people in suicide crisis or emotional distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week across the United States, and has established the Be the One Too in order to help spread the word about actions we can all take to prevent suicide. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as Suicide Prevention and Action Month in Downers Grove, and encourage all residents to take the time to understand the importance of mental health education, recognize the importance of taking care of ourselves and others, and to take proactive steps to care for each other and make suicide help resources such as DuPage Crisis Phone Support, BeThe12.com, the National Suicide Support Lifeline, and others known to all. Dated this 5th day of September 2023, Downers Grove, Illinois. Thank you all for that. Item 4 on our agenda, minutes of previous council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the August 22nd, 2023 regular meeting minutes and the executive session minutes as presented.
Second.
Any council comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved unanimously. Item 5 is our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That too passes unanimously. Item 6 would be our active agenda. We do not have an active agenda this evening, so we'll move on to item 7. That's our first reading. This is the portion of the meeting where we discuss items for the first time, sometimes for the second or third or fourth time, but these are items on which we do not plan to take official action this evening. Dave, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Burnett. There are 2 items on tonight's first reading agenda. Both have to do with welcoming Castle to the Village of Downers Grove. Essentially, these 2 agenda items would transfer existing sales tax rebate agreements from Pugi to Castle. Pugi has operated Volkswagen, Mazda, and Hyundai on Ogden Avenue for decades, and there's an existing sales tax rebate agreement in place for those businesses. That agreement dates back all the way to 2005 and will continue to be in operation for several years to come. And Pugi had recently started the construction of a brand new Genesis dealership at the corner of Ogden and Cross, and that also is subject to its own sales tax rebate agreement. Basically, Castle is stepping in the shoes of Pugi on both of those items. Pugi has retired after 30-plus years of business in the Village of Downers Grove. We wish him and his family well in his retirement. We also would like to take a minute to welcome Castle to the Village of Downers Grove and appreciate their investment in doing business in our community. We do have a representative of Castle here tonight who has asked to say a few words.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor, Commissioners, officers of Downers Grove. We are very happy to be here in Downers Grove. We've been working very hard and diligently with Mr. Pugliani to get into the community. We just love being here. Everything has been wonderful. You've been very supportive. With the words that Mayor Barnett said this evening, I openly here want to say that Castle will contribute $3,000 toward both or either or of the September month things. So I don't know who I would write the check out to or who would be administering that in the Village of Downers Grove, but
We'll get back to you.
yeah, you know what I
Thank you.
mean. So I'll be happy to cut a check for you right now if you like. Also, I would like to show you what the new Genesis building is going to look like on the corner of Ogden and Church. It's a small building, but it's in keeping with today's ways. Majority of the vehicles there are going to be EV vehicles. We have taken great strides into all of our dealerships across the Midwest and California, having EV available. We also extend to city workers, meaning municipal, like police, fire departments, so on and so forth. If they do have EVs, you are always welcome to come to any one of our facilities and charge your vehicle for free. So. And by the way, my name is Sava Mičić, I'm sorry.
Welcome.
My pleasure.
Anybody have any questions, additional comments?
No, just thanks for the generosity.
It's my pleasure.
Yes.
And whoever I get the number from to send a check to, or I can just drop it off somewhere.
Yeah, we'll circle back around.
That's fine.
But thank you.
Thanks.
I'll just echo Village Manager. First of all, thank you and welcome to Downers Grove. And thank you, too, to the Pugliani family for their many years of participation. That's certainly a name all of us are familiar with. I think probably everybody around the Chicagoland area is familiar with, and it's been a lot of fun working with Dominic and his family as well, and we're looking forward to working with the Castle Group. Other comments or questions?
Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
Well done, Martin.
And that ends first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Enza.
Thank you, Mayor. Only one item to present, and that is the Castle Agreement, an ordinance approving the sales tax rebate agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Downers Grove Products LLC, doing business as Genesis and Downers Grove. Thank you, Mayor. It will be on next week's active agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9 on our agenda, public comments. This is the portion of the meeting where we welcome comments from the public on items not on tonight's agenda. So if you've got something you want to share with us, please come on down to the podium and let us know what's on your mind.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Drake Cody. I'm a senior at Bennett Academy, and I'd like to first start off by thanking you all for giving me this opportunity tonight. I'm here tonight to help raise awareness about an issue that is very important to me, that being equal pay for workers with disabilities. What if I told you that it's perfectly legal for a business to pay individuals with disabilities a lower wage for completing the same amount of work? I'd like to introduce you a law that was a part of the New Deal from 84 years ago that still exists today in the majority of our country. Known as 14C, this law allows for companies to pay workers with disabilities sub-minimum wage, in some cases as little as $2 an hour, and it's completely legal. 14C was originally designed to support people with disabilities in the workforce, but has since become a mechanism to suppress their growth while providing cheap labor for businesses. Additionally, 14C is fraught with abuse. In fact, the Department of Labor handed out the largest fine to an establishment with a 14C certificate to a group here in Illinois. In October of 2022, the Department of Labor also reported that Illinois ranks second in the nation in the number of 14C certificates either issued or pending. At our own state level in 2021, Governor Pritzker signed a bill that eliminated all state contractors from using 14C with state contracts, and there's even a few representatives here in Illinois drafting legislation to eliminate 14C completely. My goal here tonight is to just simply raise awareness of this issue at the local level and encourage this body to research it more and determine if it's appropriate for businesses in this town to be afforded this opportunity. So thank you again for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to respond.
Thanks for taking the time to be here tonight.
Good evening. I'm Warner Kienke. I'm a resident of Downers Grove. And yesterday was Labor Day, which was officially the end of the summer. So we're now at a stage where we can begin planning for the school year, other various calendars, and events for the city. I am here tonight to talk about increasing the diversity and being a welcoming community of persons who do not look like me. We have quite a number of people who are Asian, African descent, non-white, and many times this gets boiled down to, for a village, what is the percentage of non-white versus white, how many people are indigent, and so forth. But beyond the percentages, we're also dealing with people who are homeless, histories, backgrounds, what makes the people people. And therefore, diversity is also an understanding of the history of a population. And this involves not only persons of Hispanic, Asian, or African background, but also persons with disabilities, homelessness, mental health. They all have a history. Some persons do not feel safe. In the community of Downers Grove or nearby, there is a synagogue and an African American church who requires security during the services because of events that have occurred in our nation. What can we do then to welcome persons who do not look like me? And I'm sure people don't want to look like me anyhow, but that's another issue. What can we do to recognize persons and individuals of other faiths? Because we tend to be a Christian nation, but we don't really recognize or understand people who are Hindu, Muslim,
and so forth, and their beliefs, and how that impacts their lives, and also how it impacts our community. What can we do to sponsor special events for these groups? In Naperville, they have the Juneteenth celebration. They recently had the Halal celebration, and apparently thousands of people were attracted, and they drew them in from other communities. I'm not aware that we do that in Downers Grove, other than perhaps make a proclamation. With that in mind, I would be willing to support the council in these efforts, and if you feel that I can be of assistance, I would gladly do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Items not on tonight's agenda. Okay, we'll continue. Mayor's report. Mayor does not have a report tonight. Item 11 on our agenda is council member reports. It's an opportunity for council members to report out on going on in their community, other organizations or events they're connected to or they'd like to highlight in some way. Commissioner Davenport, we'll start with you.
No report, Mayor.
Danny.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Leslie.
Yes, the Grove Foundation is looking forward to our annual golf outing this Saturday, September 9th, at the historic Belmont Golf Club. The shotguns start at 2 p.m. and registration starts at 1. I think there might be one foursome left, so if you have not yet registered and want to, definitely get on that now. And we look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you.
Is there a council crew? Is there a
There's
council
not.
crew?
I'm co-chairing the event this year, so I'm
Close
hoping
enough.
to be real relief in that.
Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's September, but Oktoberfest is in the air. And I'm sure that unless you've been in Europe or stuck at the Burning Man Festival, you are aware that Downers Grove Education Foundation for District 58 is having its annual Oktoberfest in downtown Downers Grove on September 15th and 16th of 2023. It will be at the Forest and Library parking lots, Burlington Avenue between Main Street and Forest Avenue. This is the 10th annual Downers Grove Oktoberfest that the Education Foundation has put on, and it's always a good time for both kids and parents and everyone in between. All are welcome, and if you are looking for information about tickets or sponsorships, you can visit DG Oktoberfest with a K at DGOktoberfest.org. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris?
No report, Mayor, but thank you for your proclamations tonight.
Thank you. Greg?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, item 12 is our manager's report. For the bulk of this, we're going to take a brief minute and move over to the committee room. Certainly all here are welcome. Dave, do you have anything before we do that?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll take a little bit recess here, probably about 5 minutes, and we'll connect over to the committee room. We'll call ourselves back to order here. Thank you all for joining us as well. We are continuing on our long-range planning process. We have two sort of items that we're planning on touching on tonight. One talks a little bit about what the process might look like going forward. The other talks about solidifying the items that are going to be on our list. Since last meeting, I've had a couple of conversations with colleagues on a variety of things, and I want to do a couple of things just to start tonight. One is clarify how we got to 18. There's been some question about that. I think we probably weren't as clear as we should have been. We had individual meetings, council members and staff, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, a month ago-ish. And in each of those meetings, council members went through and tried to assign kind of A, B, and C priorities to the list. What we're trying to do here is figure out how we get 7 different sets of priorities aligned in some way that all 7 people can get behind. So that's how we got from 29 to 18. And then from that point forward, it's a process of this group deciding they like or don't like the 18. And so before we go any further tonight, I just want to sort of open it up one last time. It's not a speak now or forever hold your peace, because this is actually more fluid than any of us wish. But if there's anybody that wants to get into anything in particular level of detail, or raise a question about something that's on the list, or talk about something that isn't on the list in a higher degree of detail than we have, now would be the time to do that. So that's the first thing we're going to throw out there before we hand it over to Dave.
People seem to be looking this direction. They are. I think I'll step forward into that. So, a couple of things, I think, and I'm not exactly sure where this is supposed to fall in the meeting, but I'm just going to go for it, and we can go from there. That's what I like about this room. It feels a little more conversational. I think if we look at page 6, which has the 18 that we discussed last week, that seemed to be, we all seem to sort of lean towards. I just want to make a few observations as I've had a little time to review this and understand a little more and maybe go a little deeper on what I think is a little bit of a misconception of some of the scale of these things. When the staff prepared that report for us, each item was described and then given sort of a time and resource allocation metric, right? It was moderate, which was supposed to mean sort of the lowest tier of time and resources. Significant, which I'll just call that the middle rating, for lack of a better way to describe that, and then extensive, which was obviously requiring the most time and resources. When I look at this list, there are 4 items on here that I'm not quite sure meet our standard, candidly, of the priority action item. 3 of them based on the fact that they're not scheduled out for more than 6 months, or 6 months or more. So ERP, which was definitely a extensive project, looks like it's aimed to wrap up here in the next 3 months. We have building codes and building code updates and the public safety stabilization, fairly straightforward, I think, labeled moderate by the staff in terms of time and resource, and again, are marked for 3 months, not for the full 6 months. Ogden TIF is the only one that is slated here in this description for longer than 3 months. My understanding of that, though, it's just an extension of the TIF, so it feels like it may not have all the pull that a TIF might require. And again, the staff also rated that as moderate. So there's 4 items on this list that I feel like don't have anywhere near the weight. So when we bring up this number of, we've got 18, it's the most we've ever done. I feel like we've got a little imbalance in how we're referring to these equally. I mentioned this last time around. I just wanted to make sure my point was solidified. So we've got 7 items on here that were marked as extensive. I think we're going to talk a lot about 5 of those tonight, or at least how we're going to approach those. And I think that will be great. Given all that, if we're only talking about maybe 18, sort of, I think we picked it somewhat in terms of like a magic number. We didn't want to add. It seemed like folks didn't want to add onto that. For all those 18, if I'm correct, I think we're only talking about 1 additional headcount. Yes, there's consultants and things like that, but to me, that's demonstrative of this being a plan that can be handled by staff, and I think that's what we've heard from by them. But I'm not sure from our standpoint we really discussed enough last time, sort of the individual items and what we thought or didn't think. Seemed like we spent a lot of time last time talking about the amount of work that needed to be done, but not necessarily the initiatives themselves. So I feel like it's just important to bring that up. And I mentioned that too because, as the mayor said, and I'll just be frank, I was a bit disappointed with the process last time, how these 18 were added to our list. I just didn't think the meeting was conducive to collaborative discussion. I've already expressed that to each of you individually and staff. I don't need to rehash that, but just so you know where I'm coming from. So given that tonight we're looking to finalize the plan, and just based on the context of what I'm hope we can now view this plan as, is not this 18 equal heavy lifting items, I want to use this opportunity to perhaps recommend that we replace the public tree planting, perhaps with public art leasing, I think, which fits nicely in our downtown dining and hardscaping. I would also be in favor of adding street crossing standards. I think that was an item that ties very closely to the work we're going to be doing from the Bike and Ped Plan and some of the other planning around town. I also, obviously, am very interested in community grants. We had a discussion last time about that. But I think because we did not have a full discussion about each item, it was difficult for me to understand where each of you might have stood. And while the mayor mentioned the individual meetings where we all ranked things, none of us had a lot of insight into what each other may or may have thought on those. So I'm just interested in, again, I will put on the table now, replacing the tree planting policy. I don't think that's something that's broken. I think the mayor has pointed out the net gain in public trees we've had over 30 years. And I feel like both the public art leasing, obviously community grants, if I can get enough of you to go along with that one's important to me, and then also the street crossing standards. Both street crossing and public art were listed as moderate time and resource items, and I just believe will add more value to the village. I heard a couple of you last time talk about removing some. Tree planting policy was on that list, so I would just ask if there would be anyone willing to discuss either adding, replacing any of those items that I mentioned.
Leslie, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe a comment. I would also be interested in replacing the public tree planting with art, which probably also came through in my one-on-one meeting. I personally feel as though, we have certified arborists and folks on staff who kind of know what they're doing and know which things are likely to survive in our area and are native and all that good stuff. I'm comfortable with leaving that to them, and I do think that we would gain some value in having a public art, leasing option. We would also be able to kind of work with other partners and share the load a little bit. My guess, without speaking to the arborist thus far, is that they likely review some of those practices anyway. And I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to direct better than the staff we have that kind of know what they're doing. So I would be interested in swapping out the tree planting practices with an art leasing space. And in terms of the street crossing standards, I assume we're probably going to get into that at least a little bit with the comprehensive plan update, so I'm a little bit hesitant to replace something that is likely going to get covered at least in some fashion during comprehensive planning. I'd rather kind of introduce something else that hopefully and theoretically would not be costing us money, right? Figuring out how to publicly display art and could potentially offer some good partnerships with other organizations in Downers Grove. So those were my thoughts.
Okay, sure.
Mayor, I have a number of comments about the long-range plan that I think I'd like to hold back for the time being, because I think there's a decent amount of information in the staff's presentation that is going to set the stage for what I have to say. So I'm not ready to say that I'm looking to sub anything in or out at this point. I think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Certainly we'll come back, Greg.
Can I go ahead?
I was just going to make a quick comment on the public tree planting. I don't think it's a huge lift, and I think there's an old proverb that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. So, looking at what we're doing right now, spending a little bit of time looking at what we're doing right now, and basically allowing the arborist to spend that additional time, right, and saying that this is something that we want to have happen. And are there places where we could get some more trees planted? So I'm not real keen on taking that off the list.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Martin?
I was going to half comment now and half comment later if I
Okay.
can. My only issue with public art leasing, which I think is a terrific idea, and actually it's been a very successful program in a lot of other communities, is just timing. That's my concern. Because if you look at the description of that initiative, it, whether intentionally or not, contemplates the downtown. as being the space. Well, we're also talking about doing a lot of things downtown. I would be hesitant to start figuring out where to put public art until we know what we're doing with downtown. So to me, it's an issue of timing. It's not it's not that I don't like it, it's just I think sometimes things have to happen in sequence rather than parallel.
I had a similar thought as well. So taking it up in a couple of years versus now is kind of where I was at with that.
Any thoughts, Danny? Want to add to it?
I mean, I'm happy with the list the way it is now. If we were going to change anything out, I did like the idea of the community grants program. It just didn't outweigh majority of the items on here for me. I don't think I would be interested in swapping out public art for the public tree planting, maybe the community grants, but that would be maybe my only change.
You know, the list it's a list. I think we're maybe acting a little too scientific about it. Every list we've ever had has had big lift, small lift things. Every list we've ever had we've started down and then had to trim the sails one way or another for a variety of reasons. I recall the 29 items as being, 25 of them as being sort of 7 head nods or shoulder shrugs kind of a thing. So I don't think it's like the list is going away. The question was not so much.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean, the list.
So like when people talk about timing.
Yeah.
For instance, public art not being on this list of 18
Yeah.
doesn't mean somehow the village is no longer ever going to consider this. We could find ourselves 6 months from now deciding 7 of these things aren't really feasible, and all of a sudden we ought to be onto that one. That's been the reality of all of our lists. We come up with them, whether they're 14 items or 12 items or 18 or 29 items. They all are a mix of big and small. They all are less predictable than we wish they were, and they all get adjusted as we go. What this was an attempt at trying to figure out how do we get 7 people rowing more or less the same direction. What I suspect is this 18, I can tell you right now, it's not my 18. It's not my, if I had to pick 18, it wouldn't be these 18, right? And that's probably true around this entire table. And so, I would prefer to just start working. I'd prefer to start working on these things. The other thing that I think might be a little bit missed, and is probably important for the record and for the public, is when we talk about moderate and significant and extensive, there's pieces of that, right? Some of that is staff work. Some of that is council work. Some of that is community work. When we look at our policy issues over the years that we've brought up, whether it's stormwater utilities or chicken ordinances or long-range comprehensive plans or plan updates or ped and bike plans or any of the things that have been on these lists, remember, these are generally sort of above and beyond slightly aspirational kinds of things, right? Tomorrow morning, our staff, top to bottom, has got a list, and this isn't it yet. So all of these things, we have gone to great lengths in Downers Grove to try, sometimes more successfully than others, to bring the community along in the decision. And I think that might be part of what we might be missing a little bit as we evaluate the definition of moderate or significant or extensive. I'm going to pick on gaming because I like picking on Danny. It would take Enza about an hour to write that. It's not going to take us an hour. So how do you want to label that? Significant, moderate, extensive? Sort of depends on how many people show up in a room and how long we let the conversation go, right? These are estimates that try to encompass, based on history and experience, what we think the whole scope of involvement is going to be, not just the task. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think it's probably the list we ought to go forward with. I also think it's entirely likely it won't be the same list in 6 months or 10 months. So I'm happy to just actually start doing some work. That's what I prefer we do. Anybody else want to adjust? I mean, certainly we're going to have more time to talk after Dave gets through his conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the context of the list and the discussion that we had, regardless of moderate, significant, or extensive, I think the majority of our conversation last time around was about how big the list was. And what I'm trying to make is that, of course, every list is going to have a bunch of different things at different intensity, but we kept talking about the number. It was 18. It was too many. We've never seen this many. And I don't think that characterizes the actual workload involved in these. I don't want to pick on DEI. I think it's one of the most important things we can do. But we did a lot of the heavy lifting getting that in place. The DEI initiative that's on this list now is no different, correct me if I'm wrong, is no different than what we have been doing and basically maintaining. The fact that it shows it's going throughout the next 2 years is an indication to me that we're continuing that practice. But it's not an indication that our team is heavy lifting on DEI for 2.5 years or 2 years. So my point isn't that the list is going to be all extensive or all moderate. I just feel and still feel that it was characterized last time as a list, a heavy list of 18, and I think the graphics that are given to us, the way that it was interpreted, changes the way we look at the list. I think it has an impact. And so I just want to make sure we're clear, because we have heard a lot of talk about bandwidth, and that's where the conversation went to the last meeting. And I just feel we can limit ourselves by making all things equal and not looking at these for what they actually are in terms of time. I am certainly well aware that is not just the staff's time, it's not just council's time, that it involves the community. But when I look at ERP ending at the end of this year, I'm not sure why it's one of the 18. Why are we even discussing it? That's my point. So I think if we're a council that is looking to do things, to create the vision to do more, which is what it sounds like when you have 29 items on a list that get pared down to 18, let's talk about doing more, not including things on this list that are nearly complete. That's my point.
Okay. Martin?
So let me just jump into that, because I started the conversation, all due fairness, Chris, last time about this is a lot, it's certainly been done before. And I don't view that through a lens of looking at the write-ups or looking at the diagrams or looking at anything. I frankly view that from the lens of experience. So I've sat in this room, I've sat out there with other council members who said the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Well, this isn't a big deal, because they wanted to get something that they wanted done. I mean, we're all passionate about different things. So if we're going to say, well, if I can move this and nudge that and do this, if I can get something else done, of course. But it's just experience. And it's experience from two perspectives. Number one, what can get done and what happens in reality, not on paper, but what actually happens. That's the only lens I can view it through. And so I do. And that's why I said what I said. The other thing is, and I think you're actually understating it, Mayor, is that some of these things may take very little staff time, but it will take a lot of community conversation. Other things would actually take a lot of detailed time. I mean, to do TIFs, you don't just whip out a TIF. There's a process, it's statutory, but most people in the community, yeah, great, extend a TIF. Might be very little conversation. That is a huge factor. I don't know how many things, again, from experience that I've seen, very simple discussion, you think we're gonna go forward, everybody's unanimous, and it goes on for months and months and months. And then it takes a turn here, and it takes a turn there. So the lift isn't necessarily weight, it's also with, what'd you say, bringing the community along?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's uniquely Downers Grove. We don't just talk about things and involve the community, we take it to the doorsteps. I mean, that's the Downers Grove, I'm not gonna say that word because I think it's been overplayed, that's the Downers Grove way. So that's the only reason why I look at that, and if I'm wrong, great, fantastic, then we'll get 30 things done. Because here's the other thing, we get 18 things done by June of next year, we're not putting pens down and walking away and taking the rest of the year off. We're gonna say, okay, remember those public art leasing spaces programs we talked about? We just completed the downtown. Let's go right into that. Everybody seemed to say that they want to do that, let's do it. Or there's the next thing and the next thing. It's not that we're gonna stop if we get to the number 18. It's just, I think that's just viewed from the lens of experience, what is practically reality. The other thing is, and I probably said what I said more than anything, is to manage expectations. we like to underpromise and overdeliver. So if something is, wow, that's going to be tough, it's going to take us 12 months or 18 months, and we get it done sooner, hallelujah. Hallelujah. But it's about managing expectations, and the biggest expectation is, I think I said it last time, that we move at the speed of the community. Because if the community says, whoa, hold on a minute, I want to talk about this, and I want to see some information, we're not going to say, nope, sorry, we got to get to it, because Dave Fieldman told me this has got to be done by the third quarter of 2024. Once again, it's not the Downers Grove way. We will move as the community is going to move with us. So that's really what I was talking about.
Mhm.
It's not that can't do it or we don't want to do it. It's just managing expectations. It's viewed through the lens of experience. And if we get more things done, and I guarantee there'll be some things we don't get done, because we'll be sitting here in December, we'll be sitting here, well, maybe it won't be December, we'll be sitting here in maybe March, and there'll be something that has changed. Or something that we got a report back from a consultant, or we got a bid back, or we got something. And it's going to be a new piece of information, and I think it's only responsible for us to act upon new pieces of information if it makes sense to change course. You don't just say, well, it's on the list, so we're going to do it. I think, well, okay, maybe that's something we need to kick till next time. Is there something else we can pick up? We do that all the time. So I do want to also convey that flexibility that I think that councils in the past have demonstrated, which is, if something for whatever reason can't go forward, we already know we have a very big bag of things to dip into to do other things. So a lot of it to me is about timing. It's not necessarily about level of interest or passion to put it forward. It's more about sequence and timing, managing expectations, and just looking at things through the lens of history. If we get 18 things done by March, then let's move on to the next item. Just to put what I said into context, that's all.
Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. So, with regard to the previous meeting, I mean, you and I both tried to change this list 2 weeks ago. Put aside the rest of the conversation, you talked about community grants. I talked about taking 3 or 4 things off this list. Both of those things fell flat. I'm going to try again, just as you're trying again. But if and I say this with all respect, but if the conversation didn't take the tender that you wanted it to, it's because you didn't change it. We all have the same microphone in front of us, and the ability to bring items up. We can talk about any one of these things. I hope we don't, because I think there's a lot of them that I think we all know where we are at. But I also think we have to make sure that we're thinking about this as not just the council's plan, but the community's plan. We have to be responsible in how we're getting input and understand that a lot of these things that we're talking about here, whether it's the comp plan or environmental sustainability or downtown dining and hardscape, the enhanced bike and ped plan, Fairview Avenue, these are decisions that have decades and decades of impact, and we can't make them at a breakneck pace. And that, in my opinion, is what we're going to see in terms of the change in how staff is proposing that we undertake these in order to meet this 2-year schedule or 18-month schedule, versus how we've approached it in the past. And I think that's irresponsible. We have to talk about, I think, how to pare down this list so that we can get things done in a manner that brings the community along and respects the community and its input, rather than simply move forward with absolutely everything on the list. And Chris, we're going to have to disagree on some of these items, because I take the input of both the mayor and Commissioner Tully with great respect. And I also know that a lot of these items are going to take a lot of time, whether it's building the new building, the Meadowbrook TIF's going to take some time, lead service line replacement's going to go on for another 10 years, and all of these other items that we've got here. And to think that we can just upend the processes that we've used in the past, I think is the wrong way to go. From my point of view, we ought to be talking about postponing the comprehensive plan and focusing on the environmental sustainability plan, the bike and ped plan, and the Fairview Avenue plan implementation, and then postponing the 2 downtown items as well. Because I think all of these items are going to eventually inform the comprehensive plan, So to do them in parallel, I think, is taking up bandwidth that could otherwise be used elsewhere. And I would go farther and also remove the public tree planting practices and the private tree regulations. I would fold those into the environmental sustainability plan. And I wouldn't replace anything. Because I think what we're doing here with this list, if we go forward with these 18 projects as we are, or as they are listed, I think we're making a mistake.
Leslie, I think you were wanting to say
Yeah, I'm
something.
going to talk about the timing and whatnot after the village manager's presentation. But one thing I did just want to comment on is that I very much, I respect that thought about really trying to manage expectations for the community, and I really agree with that. I think it's really important to bring those issues up with the community. But one thing that I have some concerns with is the idea of under-promising and over-delivering. Like, that always feels really good, right? But it isn't necessarily visionary, right? And, it means that we're kind of continuously, and I think it's important to be cautious when we talk about our finances, right? And when we talk about some of these plans. But I think when we discuss, big action items and our goals and where we want to see ourselves in 5 to 10 years, or in 2 to 3 years with the start of some of these plans, because we know that, Fairview Avenue and a lot of these others are going to go on for the next 5 to 10 years. I want us to be at least just a little bit more visionary and say, these are really the things, this is what we want to see in the next 2 years for these priority action items, and then 5, 10 years down the road. And I think sometimes if we get too caught up in really being worried about maybe falling short in one area for the public that we would like to see, I worry that we're not kind of pushing ourselves to the next level. So I just want to be thoughtful about kind of the way that we're talking about it. I think you and I probably agree on what it actually all means, right? But just in terms of kind of using some of that terminology, sometimes to me feels a little bit like, well, we're just going to kind of sit back and do things. I do want to push us a little bit more. I understand some of the concerns that you have. I'm going to speak to the plans and moving forward later, but I just kind of wanted to speak on behalf of, I would rather see us have an ambitious plan to show people where we want to take this village, and then potentially have some of those things come up where, oh no, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, and this is going to take much longer, and we're now just going to have to adjust this process. I'd rather see us do that than have lowered expectations in the beginning and then potentially exceed them. I want to see us be more visionary, I guess.
I think those are important comments, and I really think that 7 people sitting here share that.
Yeah,
And,
I
you
think
said
so,
they
too.
might be saying it a little differently and emphasis on a different spot in the sentence.
Yeah.
But what this is exactly that, right? This is, we all know whether this has 1 or 2 of these items swapped out with 1 or 2 other ones.
Mm-hmm.
We all know this is a stretch. Everybody sitting around this table knows it's a stretch, at least based on any kind of history.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll prove it wrong, which would be great. I mean, here's the other thing. This is not an 18 list. This is an 18 top items in a 29 list. I mean, I know that's sort of kind of sounds weird, but we're kind of getting ourselves, I think we're getting ourselves a little hung up in the fact this is 18 items. This is 29 items. We've said these are the first 18 we're going to try and focus on. We're about to hear how staff thinks maybe we'll do that, and it is aspirational. Any review of our history to this point would suggest this is a real stretch. So let's just stretch and go and do it. I think we're going to come back, because the last item on the agenda here in this room is to try and solidify, confirm the plan, approve the plan. But Dave's going to talk a little bit about how he thinks we might get at it. So everybody, we're still going to come back. We can still continue this if we want to, but let's have Dave talk a little bit about how he sees us getting through the plan.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. As per the introduction, we're going to talk about the comprehensive plan and the related action items and how staff envisions an innovative approach to taking on all these projects at the same time. So we just talked about this. Our long-range plan includes several action items that are planned to be completed in a 20-month period from September of 23 right now through April of 25. This includes update the comprehensive plan and 5 related action items: an environmental sustainability plan, a downtown hardscape and landscape plan, a downtown outdoor dining plan and program, an enhanced bicycle and pedestrian plan, and Fairview focus area implementation. As noted in our last meeting back in August, these action items are proposed to be undertaken in a coordinated fashion. And staff has identified 4 goals and objectives to be achieved as we undertake these items. First, all 6 items should be substantially completed or substantially advanced by May of 2025, noting that our efforts for the Fairview focus area implementation will continue on for many years to come. Second, the comp plan should continue with our tradition of producing top quality, award-winning work. The updated plan should be modern and reflect current best practices. Third, all of the deliverables noted in the project descriptions produced by the council in previous meetings should be produced. We should achieve those. And finally, these projects should be coordinated such that policy recommendations and actions are aligned, working hard to avoid any inconsistencies. And the overall challenge is quite simple. This is a lot of work to complete in a short time frame. However, the village is committed to innovation, and we have a track record of producing high-quality work under tight timeframes. To achieve the goals and objectives, staff has identified a 4-step innovative approach, which includes working concurrently on all 6 projects and having the village council take on the duties usually handled by a comp plan ad hoc committee, and engaging multiple boards and commissions and multiple consultants. So the priority action item that drives the other 5 projects is the update to the comprehensive plan. And we can take a minute to understand what a comp plan is and how it may relate to other projects. So to do this, I just took some excerpts from our current 2017 comprehensive plan, and you can take a second to read these. Guide development decisions, direct the use of land, the movement of vehicles and pedestrians, et cetera. Promote the village of Downers Grove's unique assets, et cetera. This is when Director Popovich says it's an aspirational document, it's a planning document. It hits on all these things and probably some more things as we move forward. The update to the existing comp plan will be substantial. So much has changed since 2017, including the topics typically covered in a comprehensive plan. These potential topics are directly related to the topics to be addressed in the other 5 priority action items. So a lot of these bullets have appeared in previous comp plans, and several of these bullets have not appeared in comp plans that the Village of Downers Grove has undertaken. Once a comprehensive plan is prepared, usually other supporting plans are prepared and implementation projects are undertaken. The 5 projects in the work plan that are related to the comp plan can fall into these categories: the environmental sustainability plan, the enhanced bike and ped plan, and the downtown streetscape plan are planning documents that support the comp plan. That is, the recommendations and actions in these plans should further the goals, objectives, and recommendations in the comp plan. The Fairview focus area implementation and the downtown outdoor dining program are implementation items which should align with recommendations in the comp plan. So the traditional approach calls for preparing the comp plan first and then preparing the supporting plans and taking implementation steps. This is traditionally done in succession, as shown on this slide. And Downers Grove used this approach in 2011 when the comp plan was prepared, and again in 2017 when it was updated. And during the work on the comp plan, the village engaged an ad hoc committee, the Plan Commission, and the Village Council. The ad hoc committee performed their work first, then the Plan Commission considered the recommended comp plan, and then the Village Council considered the comp plan with the recommendations from both of the advisory bodies. So here's a closer look at the process and timeline we used in 2011 when the comp plan was prepared, along with a supporting plan, the bike and ped plan. This process took 38 months, not including the extensive public input process known as Total Community Development 3, TCD 3, which took place prior to preparing the comp plan. So TCD actually takes place before you see these bar charts. Preparing the comp plan itself took 22 months. Ad hoc committee worked over an 11-month period, and the plan commission completed its work in a 6-month period, and then the village council took 5 months to review and approve the comp plan. Work on the bike and ped plan started shortly thereafter. It was a couple months later, and that project took 16 months to complete. Here's a closer look at the 2017 comp plan update, and the supporting implementation work. The project was rezone the downtown. This process took 31 months. The comp plan update was completed in a 15-month period, 8 months with the ad hoc committee, 2 months with the plan commission, and again 5 months with the village council. Rezoning the downtown to implement the recommendations of the updated comp plan took 16 months. Much of that time was spent considering and applying the recommendations of the comp plan. Most of it right here in this room, if you recall. Okay, so here's an innovative approach. In this case, staff is proposing that the work on all 6 projects is done concurrently, with the council serving in the role of the ad hoc committee and engaging multiple boards and commissions and consultants. Here's what the team would look like. So in addition to the council and staff, the team would consist of the Environmental Concerns Commission, the Transportation and Parking Commission, the Historic Preservation and Design Review Board, and the Plan Commission, along with likely 4 consultants all working simultaneously. So that's the proposed team there. The council would direct and coordinate all the work, providing policy direction throughout the process instead of at the latter parts of the process as we previously done. The council policy direction would be provided to the other members of the team in real time so that their work reflects the policy of the council. The council will likely have to meet monthly on these topics to provide effective direction. The ECC would be responsible for preparing sustainability-related topics in the comp plan. And once this work is far enough along to understand that those key policy recommendations, then the ECC would begin to work on the environmental sustainability plan, even as work on the comp plan continues, okay? Similarly, TAP would work on the transportation-related topics in the comp plan, and then, once that's far enough along, start work on the bike and ped plan. The Plan Commission would work on all other topics in the comp plan, as well as consider the rezoning of the Fairview focus area. The HPDRB would not actually be working on the comp plan, but would work on supporting implementation items, including preparing a downtown streetscape plan, the physical portions of the downtown outdoor dining plan, and the streetscape plan for the Fairview area. All 4 boards and commissions would be supported by a consultant and staff liaisons. Their monthly work would be reported to the council, would come to the council each month for council direction and consideration. The council would provide the policy feedback directly to these boards, allowing them to continue the work in a manner consistent with council direction. This approach is designed to complete a lot of work by getting this policy direction in real time. So using the same bar charts as we used earlier that we showed in 2011 and 2017, here's how it would look graphically. Work on the comp plan would take place from October 23 through May of 2025. At some point, kind of early in the process, once the comp plan recommendations and policy directions in the areas related to the other 5 projects are sufficiently developed, work on the other 5 projects would commence and likely continue through May of 25. So this is trying to show graphically what that looked like. Instead of in series, do it in parallel. So the primary challenge remains a lot of work in a short amount of time, and it could be addressed with this approach. Another challenge that may present itself is the consultant's ability to perform this work concurrently on our schedule. 4 or 5 consultants would have to produce coordinated work quickly, with deliverables likely due on a monthly basis. Another challenge may be dealing with potentially conflicting policy directions coming out of the 4 advisory boards at varying times during the process. It may be challenging to provide effective direction on this schedule. Effectively obtaining and managing public input, which will be coming in from multiple sources throughout the projects, may also be a challenge. And the 4 advisory boards may be challenged by working not only on these projects, but still handling their regularly scheduled duties. Finally, just the overall complexity of trying to work on all this concurrently may be a little bit challenging. Essentially, we're trying to complete or advance a significant update to the comp plan in 5 supporting plans or implementation projects in a 20-month period. Historically, the village did some comp plan work in 1 supporting project in 31 and 38 months. This will require all team members to complete large volumes of high-quality work quickly with specific actions to be completed each month. Most of all, the team should approach this with a high level of flexibility. This is an untested, complex, and innovative approach. We may need to make significant adjustments as we go, and the completion deadlines may have to be adjusted. The council has requested that we do more work in an expedited manner, and staff thinks this implementation has a reasonable chance of substantially completing or advancing these 6 interrelated projects, consistent with the bar charts we were talking about earlier. So, it's unusual that we do an implementation plan. It's not really policy, but this is so important. We wanted to make sure that the council was on board with this innovative approach, so that we think we can get going on it right away. Mayor, any feedback the council has would be appreciated.
So, feedback, Leslie?
Yeah. I am actually comfortable with the start of this, with a lot of caveats, of course, as we talk about flexibility. One positive, I do think that engaging our boards and commissions in this fashion is a huge benefit. You know, I know folks, not just on the ECC, I know that's been a real sore spot here, but not just on the ECC, but others who have been kind of, disappointed when, meetings get canceled or there's not a lot to take up or things like that. And I think this would be a real benefit for those who are on boards and commissions to really be able to provide their input in a meaningful way. And we have asked those folks to serve on those very specific boards and commissions to give that type of input rather than, a larger, broader ad hoc committee. So I think it's a benefit to be able to make sure that we are engaging our boards and commissions more. And I also think it's a benefit to engage the council more frequently because, as we've kind of seen, I think we tend to get more resident input when it rises to the level of council versus an ad hoc committee or what the case may be. So we might actually even be getting more input, which could delay this further, which was my next point of I am even comfortable if we find that the public input that we have in all of these different areas extends this beyond the 18 to 20 months. I think probably all of us sitting up here expect that it's going to take longer than 18 to 20 months. And I know I'm more than comfortable with it going beyond if we kind of find that this pace is just not sustainable. So I am comfortable knowing that that is possible down the road and don't have any expectations that things might not come up. One thing that I find interesting is that in the challenges, we talk about, one of the big ones being conflicting direction, but I actually think it's a benefit that we would be talking about those potential conflicts at the same time, rather than, completing one plan and then another and then saying, oh, what do we do now, right? We're able to kind of figure out if there are compromises that we can make in the moment that will best serve each of those needs. So I think it is ambitious and maybe a little bit crazy, and that's okay. But I think there really are some benefits to moving forward this way. Now, again, we may find that there are pitfalls and have to change course. I'm more than comfortable doing that. But I think there are some benefits to doing this way, and I'm comfortable moving forward to begin the process, knowing that this may not be what it actually looks like come the end of 2 years. Those are my initial thoughts.
Other reactions? Greg?
And now for something completely different. Dave, could you flip to the, let's see, keep going. Yeah, leave me that one. So I've said privately, and I don't know if I've said this in front of the microphone before, but that if we asked staff to build us a moon base, they'd come back with a couple of options on how to do that. None of them would work because, hey, that's not what we do. But they'd come back with options for us. And in my mind, that's kind of what they've done here. Engaging our boards and commissions in the proposed way is good, but I think we would have done that on a lot of these topics anyway. And I think what we're doing here is creating, in my mind, a feedback loop. The council is saying, do this, and then information's coming back, and we're just sending it back and forth. I think there's real benefit to an ad hoc committee taking a holistic look at the comprehensive plan, or at an environmental sustainability plan, or whatever it might be, Fairview Avenue. Because there's real benefit in people getting down into those details that we get down into that a lot of people don't. And I think we've seen some great feedback over the years, whether it's 2011, 2017, on the comprehensive plan coming from those ad hoc committees. And then the Plan Commission looks at the comprehensive plan, and they might go in an entirely different direction. And that's all incredibly useful to the 7 folks sitting around this table. So, could we pull this off? Yeah, we could. There's an awful lot of things that could change and throw this way off. I would rather see us go with the model that we've used in the past and focus on what we think are the 2, 3, 4 most important of these items, and really do the visioning part of it well, and not try to turn it into a sprint that we don't need it to be. I think doing all of this all at once is a mistake.
Others?
Can I say that I agree with aspects of what you both said? Because I think it is a solid plan, but we are asking staff basically to do twice as much work in a third of the time. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why are we cramming all this into 20 months? I mean, we can, and you're right, Greg. It's like that scene from Apollo 13 where stuff's on the table. How do we get the round thing into the square hole? And they figure it out. So you figured it out. But it also reminds me of those home improvement shows where they've got 1 week just for the show. They've got to get the property. They've got to get it all renovated. They've got to show it. They've got to sell it in 1 week. Well, that's artificially imposed. So actually, I think it's a comment that Commissioner Davenport made to me at one point in time. This doesn't have to be 20 months. I mean, it's going to take longer than 20 months. And if we have a majority of this council or consensus of this council that says this is the plan, it's going to go for 4 years. It doesn't have to be crammed into 20 months. You've come up with a brilliant, staff's come up with a brilliant plan to get it done in 20 months or get most of it done in 20 months. And I'm also anxious to get started because I like the plan. I think it's visionary actually, to try to accomplish it and see what we can get done. But I think we just need to realize it doesn't have to get done in 20 months. There's no, something doesn't happen in 20 months that all of this comes to a screeching halt. It's going to continue beyond it. And so I also agree that doing it in a mindful and purposeful way to make sure that we maximize our opportunity of achieving our objectives in the best and most unique way for Downers Grove is what I'm interested in. And if we're going to be super innovative and try things that we've never done before, that's great. But then we also, what do they say in business? You have to learn to fail fast. If it ain't working, then you got to change direction quickly and try it a different way. And that's what I mean about people understanding that in order to take on things that haven't been done before, that's great. But if it's not working out, then you have to try something else. So I don't know if I'm actually suggesting a different outcome. I think it's a very impressive and very ambitious plan. I kind of want to just get started on it. Let's start putting the shovels in the ground, so to speak, and get moving and see what happens. Maybe we dig up a cistern we didn't know about and it delays construction. Or no, I'm sorry, it was a boulder at the parking deck, right? It was the unforeseen boulder that delayed the project. Nobody knew there was a boulder there. Very large boulder.
I've encountered the cisterns before.
Yeah, or the cisterns. You start digging in the backyard, you don't know what you're going to find. So part of me wants to just get the shovels in the ground and move forward.
I thought you said sister.
Cistern.
At a whole different meeting, Commissioner. I'm glad I heard you said sister. Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner. Got it.
Old thing for holding water.
I got it now. Yeah. It's the,
but I mean, can we be more mindful and purposeful and get things done in an orderly way and get them done exceptionally well, such that we delight our constituents, which is what we have a track record of doing, rather than trying to say, we gotta get this done in 20 days, 20 months.
Can I, much like your comment earlier, I agree with a fair bit of what you said there, Martin. But
That's how we reach consensus.
there is a little bit of magic to the 20 months, because there is something that takes place in roughly 20 months. It's an election. And you're going to get one new member up here, you could get three.
Right.
And
Majority's
at
not
that
changing,
point, well, it depends on how the votes lie, right? Because you could get somebody that comes in and convinces folks to take an entirely different direction on something that we're halfway down the field on. And I think that's why there always has been a bit of magic to the idea that we're going to get things done in 18 to 20 months. So I'm not saying that we can't have things that go on longer, but I would hate to see us get, 2/3 of the way done with something and all of a sudden the needle scratches off the record. I'm just going to keep mixing metaphors.
I agree with you, but I think the big important things, like whether it was renovating the downtown, whether it was a stormwater utility, whether it was
Comp plan.
the comp plan, whether it was there's a million things that facilities. There's a million things that people have come and gone, and they necessarily have to span multiple councils. And that's, to me, in some respects, even more important than you have to come up with a mindful, purposeful plan that the community is behind. Because that is going to minimize and eliminate the risk that someone's going to come in and scratch the needle. Scratch the needle on the record. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Mike?
I have several comments, but trying to distill down some of what I'm hearing from you. Because you used the word irresponsible early on, right? And I think this is all, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing from you is a concern that by taking on all this and in a strong belief on your part that there's no way we're going to get through all this, that that there's a consequence for that of either letting people down and misleading people at the onset, or perhaps not doing things that mindful, purposeful, Downers Grove way, where we take the time to bring everyone along, right? Bring the community along, because those are things. I mean, that's the way we've got to do this. So I'm hearing from you a very responsible sort of, we're going to do this the right way. This is the only way we're going to do it, and I'm hearing, in terms of a consequence, though. Other than falling short.
Falling short doesn't bother me.
Okay, so what's the irresponsible part of this?
Not bringing the community along. I think pulling out significant opportunities for public feedback and incredibly detailed sort of committee feedback. I think there's real value to that ad hoc committee for the comp plan in particular. I think going at such a fast pace is going to lend itself to fewer opportunities and less detailed opportunities for community feedback. And I think that's a mistake.
And how does everybody else feel about that? How does staff feel about that? Is that, do you feel that what you're proposing, that is a risk in what we're...
Well, hang on, let's be clear. What staff's proposing is as a result of what they're hearing from us. So if we hadn't said, we want it all and we want it all now, they'd have come back with a different plan.
Mike, the answer is it does. It's not, but it's, like Greg said, it's in our direction. What we did was we gave them a narrow window, and what they did was they pulled out one of the historical components of this type of a process, which is that ad hoc committee, which serves effectively as, board and commission number 2 in sort of this public evaluation and input process. So that has been removed. That's at our doing, because if we did it the way we've done it in the past, we know that this would be 4 years worth of work. So, it's not up to, no offense, guys, it's not up to staff. It's up to us. We've said get it done way faster, so one of the ways they've suggested might be to do that is to pull out that additional public input component. We can either say thumbs up or thumbs down to it.
Well, my purpose really in asking the question is that, I don't believe that anything's being proposed that staff doesn't believe that they really can't do. So moon-based sort of idea aside, I'm trusting in the leadership.
It's these challenges. The staff really does not know, to Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit's point, how these challenges will play out. And I think everybody said, well, people on the council who have talked so far tonight, I think have said in their own language the same bullet points, right? One of them is trying to figure out what does public engagement look like in a 20-month process that's running concurrently at 2 levels among 4 boards.
Yeah.
What does that look like? There's probably a lot of opportunity for public input. How we manage it and that complexity is on the list as a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Right? We talked, Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit, about also what if those are conflicting, and likely they are. That's one of the bigger challenges here. So yeah, we've identified the same challenges, and I think I just want to reiterate sort of the closing comments here, because I think it's what we're starting to hear from a majority of the council. This is an untested, complex, and innovative approach. We may need to make significant adjustments as we go, and the completion deadlines may have to be adjusted.
Right.
Yeah.
The tried and true way to get this done is the way we've done it before. But we won't get to everything on the list if we do it the way we've done it.
Which is, I'm kind of characterizing that as a linear approach, right?
Very
It's,
linear.
It's tried and true, and we know that it works. But I think one of the criticisms of government is that it takes forever to get anything done, right? And what I like about this innovative approach is it's very very similar to the way I conduct my business with my clients. And so I do a little bit, make sure I'm on the right path. I'm getting that feedback. I'm adjusting, coming back with that, and there's this constant back and forth. And one of the things with these linear approaches that we've always done is that you can, when somebody gets, and I've heard examples from you all and others as well about where things have kind of gone wrong, where a committee gets too far down the path with something, then it gets to us, and it's like, oh, that's really not what we wanted, or that's not the vision that we had, and this seems to be this sort of constant dynamic discussion, if you will, back and forth, that appeals to me. I have to ask, when you were building this innovative approach, were there other examples you were looking at? Have other municipalities that you were aware of ever tried anything like this before?
We didn't go out and search deeply to see if anybody else had done it this way. We did take a look at other municipalities that recently completed comp plans or on the streets with an RFP for a comp plan. We did not see this concurrent approach. But we also didn't go searching the whole nation to see if anybody else has done it that way.
Well, I think some of my work at District 99, there were some things that resembled this, I think. So in theory, it seems like a really great, I appreciate the work that the staff has put into this, come up with a plan that can get this done in a short amount of time. But I am also, I can tell you, the community engagement part of it is super important. Doing this in a mindful, purposeful way is super, super important. And if this means it has to push into year 3 and year 4, and yes, if it means that we end up going this way because somebody convinces me to think something different, which I think that's just kind of how things work, right? I'm willing to take that risk. But I did hear comments like, accomplishing the high quality work that we're used to doing here, that you're believing that we can do this. I'm wondering, does anybody think that we should somehow be giving any, it's very clear that the group in the middle here, right, the 5 or 6 items identified in the middle, 7 items, are, something that we're feeling very strongly about, and we're definitely going to do the work on. But should we be thinking about giving any other weight to the items on the list? So in other words, helping to give staff a little bit more direction in terms of, as time goes on. I'm getting some looks, so maybe I'm off base here.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm intently listening.
Okay. I'm sorry. So
so that as they're allocating time and they're approaching what they're doing, right? If something needs to adjust, to giving some staff a little bit of more guidance in terms of what actually may not get done or have to fall off the list.
So one of the things we're proposing, I probably should have reiterated it with this presentation, is another just small tweak to our normal process, and that is monthly updates on all the projects every month. Because to Commissioner Gilmartin's point,
you did put that in there.
Yeah, some of these are
Yeah,
some of these are short and going to wrap up on the front end, just like Commissioner Gilmartin said. We'll know how that affects our ability to do other things as they come off the list, right? So monthly reports, I think Commissioner Davenport would be our opportunity as a collective decision-making team to say, okay, focus here or not so much there, or that's going better.
Right.
So we usually just did one update halfway through, and we're proposing really continuing monthly updates, which are always an opportunity to change, direct.
Well, this is certainly ambitious, and
a little bit crazy, which staff members would agree with.
But wow!
We need a new logo for the
gateway. A little bit crazy. That's right. Welcome to a little bit crazy. I don't know. But all I'll say is that if we can pull this off, I mean, wow! And I think people will be talking about, what Downers Grove is doing, and I certainly like the sound of that. So,
Chris,
dare to be great.
You want to jump in?
Yeah, Dave, you had mentioned, as you were reviewing, I think it was, I don't know, one of the comprehensive plan, you said something about it was 5 months at council. What does that mean, 5 months at council? Like, I know at 5 months, I know the length of 5 months. I guess what I'm asking is, what does that mean in terms of the work council was doing for that 5 months? Is it, it was on the agenda once a month, it was on every meeting agenda until 5 months ended? What does that mean?
I'd have to go back and check the
Yep.
details, but the concept that you put on the table is what was happening. We had the director of the department who was overseeing that work come and present chapters of the comp plan to the council.
Every meeting?
And I don't remember the exact frequency.
It was frequent.
It was pretty frequent.
What happened was we all basically got the draft from the committee, right? And then we all started with red pens. And so somehow you have to square all that. And there's, not only is there 7 opinions on that product, that work product from the comprehensive plan committee, but then you have to figure out how to get those 7 pointed to, I mean, you have to decide what is going to end up being in print, right? So that was part of what was going on there at that time. Is there was all 7 council members to varying degrees marked up their draft copy, and then we had to square that. And that's, you can imagine, I mean, how long that takes.
And I think in both cases, 11 and 17, I think I would characterize it as significant changes at the council level to the document.
Yeah, one of the things, Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry, I won't cut you off. Go ahead.
That's okay. The second thing I was wondering about is, so it sounds like, Commissioner Jose, the challenge is the lack of public engagement built into this model, right? That's kind of where you're...
That's part of it. To me, it's a combination of that and the speed. Because I think working quickly can be effective, but I also I want to make sure that we're not going to be reckless.
Yeah, no.
We're not talking about moving fast on getting video gaming done. We're talking about documents that are going to guide decisions that are made in this village for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And that's not something I want to do fast. That's something I want to take my time to think about.
Yeah. We had an 11 comp plan, and then 6 years later, it was an update in 17, so it's not 20 years, it's 6 years.
Well, the comp plan before that lasted 40. Now, that's not to say that it should.
But we're maybe a little wiser.
1965
Maybe the
before that.
Downers Grove way wasn't such a good way in that regard.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, once we get new leadership,
No,
it got
I
better.
think we got it. I got it. I left my boots in.
So that's why I suggested maybe push the comp plan off while some of these other plans inform. We can take more time to really consider what are the impacts of the enhanced bike and ped plan. What are the impacts of the changes that we're looking to make on Fairview Avenue? And then all of that, whether it's community input, council input, staff input, the consultants, all of that will go into informing very large portion of the comp plan. And then we get another look at that, as we're talking about, they need absolutely visionary documents.
Yeah.
And I don't want to create the vision too quickly.
I think the challenge I have is the vision, by the time you're 23 months out, the vision is already on its way to being dated. So the way I look at this model is the feedback loop is exactly the benefit. You're getting sort of real time as we're going across multiple projects that are independent but connected in a way that you don't get it when you go linear, because you could end up at 22 months and then starting the next thing, and all of a sudden you're 3 years past where the 7 folks that were in there were talking about what was a good idea. And the world appears to be changing more rapidly maybe than it did before. Maybe that's just social media. But I think getting back to the point about the ad hoc, and I agree, if that's the missing piece of this, that we're reducing engagement and getting real community understanding there, then maybe it's looking at other ways we can do that within this model. If it's not an ad hoc committee, are there other ways that we can be engaging with the community to bring them along the way with this? Yes, this might be moving at a more, I don't want to say fast, because fast sounds like we're saying it's rushed. This isn't, to me, maybe that's how you feel. To me, this doesn't feel rushed. This feels efficient and doing things in parallel in order to get the most out of your time. It's an agile type design. So to me, that speed isn't a concern for me, but I think it's a valid point. If this method is reducing that, then how do we come up with creative ways to bake that into this? That isn't just an ad hoc committee that everything funnels into, that candidly can slow things down.
Sometimes, yeah, what's the saying? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? With all respect to my colleagues who are business owners, we're not talking about private business. We're not talking about running the business. We're talking about doing the people's business. And I think there's a lot of value that ends up getting lost in going down this road. I think these challenges are larger than what some of my colleagues think they're going to be. And I think sooner rather than later, if we go down this road, we're going to end up right back at this table talking about how to call an audit. And I'd rather get it right the first time.
But it sounds like this is all audible. It sounds like we just discussed how flexible we're going to need to be. I don't view this as a.
There's a resource question. You're right. It's all audible. I mean, there's no question.
Yeah.
But what we're doing that's different than maybe it might be for any of us that are operating outside of the government world is we're talking about planning and stewardship for 50,000 people and their assets. And that is not the same as, well, we just change. We just change along the way. Because just changing along the way, you have this public input process. Let's start with that. The public input process, we like the idea of engaging boards and commissions more. This seems to do that, right? Yeah. The reason the last 2 comp plans
Do we?
I think everybody does.
How much have we engaged our boards and commissions?
We like that this plan engages boards and commissions
Fair.
more. That was what I said.
Okay, I thought you were saying we like to do that, as it like looking back to the old way.
And what we know is that when boards and commissions and ad hoc committees have come up with plans for 20 years through multiple councils and multiple mayors and frankly multiple village managers, councils have taken red pens and a year sometimes, to go through that and sort it out. Because why? Because somebody's got to actually be responsible for it. Somebody's got to actually engage the legislative, regulatory, and legal worlds, and somebody has to pay for it. This plan right here is about, I'm going to say a number and everybody's going to get mad that I overestimated, but it's $1 million. It's 5 or 6 consultants, which of course we're not going to hire those next week, right? We're going to be an interview process and a public bidding process and a selection process. That in itself right there is probably 10 months, maybe 8. And they're going to cost like $100,000 a piece, something like that, plus a couple of staff people. There's $1 million. Martin says I'm low. It's $1 million in 8 months before we've started anything. Now, that's not true because staff's trying to get us working in parallel, right? But I think when Greg worries about something being irresponsible, maybe it's not the best choice of words, or somebody
I stand
worries
by it.
somebody worries about feedback loops being timed right? There's that part of it that really does matter. We're talking about getting started on a pretty big investment of everybody's time and effort, and it's not that we shouldn't do it. Everybody around this table would like to do some progress on 29 items. But what we didn't do in this whole process is prioritize. That's what we didn't do. This is a prioritization exercise, and we didn't do it. We said, we can't. Give us 18 of them kind of at the same time. That's what we said. And that, staff's done a great job trying to help us, and maybe we'll take their help. But we didn't prioritize anything. And I think that's part of what is a frustration for me is that there are priorities. I think when you look at, and this is just my opinion, not necessarily wanting to change the plan going forward from tonight, but when you look at this list of things, it seems to me that you either start with the comp plan or you start with the environmental sustainability plan, and you just do one of those two things. And it ends up informing all these other things along the way. Because those, in my mind, as I'm trying to look at being responsible for the village's decision-making and the village's legislation and how we employ people and the changes we affect or we set up to affect, those are the two that I think have the biggest impact. But I think you're going to miss stuff. I'm okay with that. In my mind, it's kind of an 80-20 thing, and I'm personally okay with that. But I certainly understand the fear and concern and the question about whether we're acting responsible when we try and do all these things parallel. Because those two things in particular are going to inform a lot of stuff. All that's to say that I'm okay with taking a couple of steps and see where it goes.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something more?
I first want to say that I've never really worked for corporate America, so my mind is not in that in that realm. I've always been in nonprofits or government, for that matter. I still think that, so you talked about taking 6 months to a year of us taking a red pen to it because there has to be a consideration for that. For me, that kind of solidifies the idea of, maybe we use these boards and commissions in the way that, we all want to within this plan of, they've got the vision and the ideas and, that broader thought, but we're the ones who are actually going to have to figure out what that's going to look like on paper, right? And so I definitely value the work that the ad hoc committees have done. But to me, knowing that, the way that we have described the comprehensive plan now as so different from previous comprehensive plans, because now we do have to think about, sustainability as we see these record-breaking heat. The way that we're having to think about our comprehensive plan is also just fundamentally different than we've thought about it in the past. And so I don't necessarily think that it is a negative to try and do this in a different manner than we've done it in the past, knowing that we are going to have to be flexible and thoughtful and know that hiring one consultant or some work being done on one of the commissions just might take a little bit longer. But I think there is a benefit to getting that continual feedback loop, so we're not spending then the next 6 months to a year putting red pen to everything, but really we're all kind of moving in the right direction together. It does feel more like us bringing the community along together when we're using the boards and commissions, getting continuous feedback and bringing the public into our meetings that way. So I think with the changes that we've seen to what the comprehensive plan even includes these days, there seems to be a benefit of working on all of this together and having us be part of that feedback loop. That being said, if we find that maybe we're not getting enough informal or otherwise type of community engagement, we could always do a themed coffee with the council. So say there have been big issues in the Environmental Concerns Commission, we could invite people and say, of course you can talk to us about anything, but we could, much like we do with the budget, we could focus on this one big issue because we know this is something we've been hearing a lot about. I think I've also been a proponent of just trying to do community conversations more frequently than in the past. And I've never won that that battle, but maybe we will now. But I think that there are ways that we can engage folks in the moment while still having those positive feedback loops where, we're not getting to the end of it and then fundamentally changing, right, what a committee has given to us. So I'm obviously hesitant because I know we haven't done it this way before, but I also know that it just hasn't looked this way before. And so I'm comfortable moving forward, again, being very clear that this may be extended and, we may have to be flexible. So those are just my thoughts.
Chris?
Yeah, I guess not having been around when the ad hoc committee was around, I assume this was just made up of residents, just a committee much like other committees, or was it selected based on certain criteria?
It was, but it was, sort of like HDRB. I can't ever get the acronym right, but there were.
It's right behind you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
But there was an intention of, there was some intentionality behind geography and profession and that kind of stuff. It wasn't just the first 20 people that showed up and raised their hand.
Right, but I think the boards and commissions now, there's been an effort to make them sort of a cross-section of residents. I'm just curious if was a similar approach to that. Yeah. Well, we now have 4 boards here instead of 1. To me, that feels like we're getting quite a bit of community feedback in this plan, in this approach. I mean, these are all community members who are a cross-section of our community.
They were part of it before. You had boards and commissions and an ad hoc committee and a council.
Right.
Taking that middle piece out.
Sure. But it's not withdrawing, in my view, all engagement with the community. It's just an added layer of an additional committee that I assume filtered, that made sort of, I don't even know, overarching recommendations based on what the lower committees made?
It's a little bit like the committee process we use with Plan Commission, maybe be a good example. People come to that, people get an opportunity in a public setting to say what they think about something, give their opinion about how it ought to go. That group hears it, they hear from professionals, make a decision, make a recommendation, it comes to us, we start that whole thing over again, effectively.
Would the public have the same opportunity at these committees here?
They have in the past.
They always have.
They have in the past,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that's...
And they've always been a cross-section of the community. But the other thing to keep in mind is oftentimes you won't really hear from the community until whether it's the ad hoc or it's whether it's the ARDB or it's the whoever it is. Once they start to bring together their recommendations, then all of a sudden you hear from the community. So we can't think that just because the cross-section of the community has come up and said, let's paint the wall purple, that until they say, let's paint the wall purple, then all of a sudden you're going to hear everybody says, purple? Are you kidding me? It should be orange. No, it shouldn't. It should be green. What are you talking about? So there's that level of...
Yeah, I've been through that.
Yes.
I've been through that.
Yeah, so I was actually on the 17 comp plan. And we had a
Architect on that? Sorry.
That's what screwed it up.
So if I'd just gotten it right then, we wouldn't be here now.
That's right. Is this promote up? Is that what this is?
Yeah. So, but we have consultants involved, right? And those consultants are going to help to lead a lot of the discussion as well. And instead of one consultant, you're looking at getting several involved, and which was one of the challenges, right? Are we going to even have consultants who can move at our speed in the way, because that's been a challenge in the past.
Yes.
And so appreciate that coming forward now. So there's definitely some speed bumps coming, I think, that we might end up being kind of where you thought we would be in terms of the speed of this. But I think we got to dare to be great, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, there's certainly risk involved in trying new things, right? But
one of the things we need to do tonight is try and give staff direction, which could be that we're not done talking, we have to come back. It's one of the possible outcomes.
Okay.
I'm not trying to cut anybody off.
okay.
But a goal of tonight would be to tell staff whether we think we want to pursue this or not. So that's an important thing for everybody to make sure they're pretty clear about it and you're taking notes on.
So the way I see it, there's sort of two options on the table. There's this, I've heard so far that we produced for discussion. Obviously talked a lot about it. And then start with the comp plan or the environmental sustainability plan. And then I heard that as a sequential plan
That
from a couple of.
It's my preference, it's only one voice.
I would go the other way. I would push the comp plan off and start with a couple of the others.
So those are the two
I'd
things
rather
that I've
get
heard
down
on
in the
the
detail.
table right now.
So on that, I have a question. Can the comp plan, because it's been 6 years, give us a couple of years for pandemic, we're probably running on schedule. So it's not as though it has to be done this year, but can that realistically be unlinked from these other things? Because to Commissioner Sadowski, through his point, I thought part of what we did earlier was talk about how they were all really linked,
Yeah, that's
running
the-
into one. So
that's-
I hear you.
that's
The more I've thought about it, can you practically do that?
So if you want to do the comprehensive plan, a comprehensive plan informs your other policies in that order. You know, that's the sequential, that's why we've done away in the past. I don't think you can unlink any
Yeah.
of these. If you do the other projects first,
The comp plan says.
then the comp plan sort of reflects, it's built the other way. It's
Yeah,
built
right.
from the detail up instead of the policy down.
That's what I thought you were going to say, which is my only problem with that proposal, because I understand the amount of effort and the mindfulness that goes into a comp plan. Whether you do it a new way or the old way, it's still an undertaking. If there was a way to unlink that and do it later and do these other things first, that would be something I'd be interested in, but I don't know if you can.
The
I just don't think
policies
you
here,
can.
I think the first thing that all of us, council members, staff, and community members talked about when this list came about was how interrelated all these policies and
Yeah.
practices are.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I was sort of looking at it the other way around. You sort of construct the comp plan based on the feedback you get on all the detail, right? Because the environmental sustainability plan is going to inform everything else you do around the village, whether it's downtown, whether it's the neighborhoods, whether it's commercial areas, et cetera. The same thing with the downtown areas. We've always had a key focus area in the comp plan on downtown. And if we're going to change a lot of the streetscape and outdoor dining plan, I would like to actually focus on that. Then you can just plug it into the comp plan, was the way I was looking at it. If staff says that that's not tenable, that you'd rather start with the comp plan and work your way down, I'm fine with that. But my overarching point is that I don't want to move at too fast a pace and cut out what I think is a significant portion of incredibly valuable community feedback and opportunities for additional feedback, just so we do it all at once. Because I think we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. I'd rather start with one and work our way through it.
So my problem is the comprehensive plan is called a comprehensive plan for a reason. It's comprehensive.
Understood.
It's part of the challenge. And while environmental sustainability is super, super important, a big part of it, but it's not all of it. There's a lot more.
That's absolutely true.
And so I guess where I'm coming down on this, just as I'm hearing everything, and this is great dialogue, by the way, is I do like the innovative approach, but maybe we just all recognize in this room it's not going to be 20 months.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen in 20 months. Let's try this innovative approach. Let's take advantage of the different things, the new world, but understand that it's going to, in some respects, have to be organic.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
If
Not really.
If the
You know what I
council were to see fit to do this, we'd feel much more comfortable adding these little black arrows at the end here, which signifies that while we're going to try to advance it as far as we can in
Yeah.
20 months, that there's a possibility or a likelihood that they won't all get done.
I think that's
I don't
fine.
like that at all. Oh, well,
Mayor, you have talked about, excuse me if I'm interrupting, but you talked about community input, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for us to make comments at some point in the meeting.
There will be, yeah, the way we've been doing these meetings is we're doing what you see here, and then we'll
I think placing the arrows there doesn't mean that there isn't still an attempt to get to where we want to get to. It's more of a admission of the reality of what we think is probably going to happen. And it also maybe helps to recognize the idea that by going too fast, we don't want to be in a place where we're just about trying to get done by that date, all for the sake of getting done by that date, and losing out on the community engagement and so I think, but it just sounds to me like there's a little bit of a consensus around the idea that this is potentially going to take longer than what's up there. And then just one last thing, it seems to me that even if we said we're going to try to move the comp plan to the back end of this, since we were going to be the comp plan, committee anyhow, there's no way that we would end up taking any of these things individually without talking about them in terms of how they all relate together. So I don't see there's any way of us disconnecting doing the comp plan.
I don't care about the arrows.
We'll do it.
It is what it is.
Well, yeah, we can put the arrows there or not. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Chris, talk more about what you're thinking.
I think then we give ourselves too much license to let things delay. Then we give ourselves too much. I mean, there's reasons you put deadlines on things. There's reasons we have timelines. It's so that there's an accountability factor that we can meet. And I just think, look, I'm not trying to say that, or I'm not trying to discount the experience of those of you who have been through this before. What I'm saying is, when you have 29 items on a list, it's a council who's looking to do a lot of things. And if we are going to achieve some of those things, or many of those things, it's gonna require a more efficient, compressed way of doing things. And I am certainly not suggesting that we are cutting out any input from the public, but I feel like maybe the one thing that isn't in there is, how are we going to get that feedback in that plan? If we're saying, if we do it this way, we are cutting out the feedback, which I don't think we're saying. We're just saying we're cutting out the way we used to get the feedback. And if that's what we feel like, which I think I've heard from most of you who have been around and done this, is that, well, you never know, it hits someone's radar and all of a sudden you got 50 people in the room, and like, I am aware of that. How we all know that could be coming. I bet you we could hit 85% of the items that are going to cause those. How do we plan for that as part of our plan so that we know and bake that into it? So I agree. I want as much community input as we can get, but there's maybe a different way or mechanism or approach that I would say ask staff to go back and think about how that might be done. We're also adding, if I am incorrect in this, with the consultants and the staff liaisons to this, we are now adding another layer of intelligent, smart folks that are this is their focus. So it's their, in my view, as a business owner, it's that team's responsibility to keep these things moving. And if part of the expectation is we need quality feedback from the group, figure out how to do that.
So if the council directs us to start this implementation plan, one of the first steps will be a request for proposals from consulting firms, probably led by urban planning firms, to put together a package of consultants to do this.
Okay.
And one of the first questions will be, if you direct us to do it, we'll share this with them, and key question will be, how do you envision obtaining usable public input throughout this process?
And how long do you think that'll take?
And how long do you think it will take, and what do you think the limitations are? So that question, to Commissioner Gilmartin's point, will be one of the fundamental questions that speaks to the challenge of, can they get this done? Consultants' ability to meet the schedule and manage concurrent work. So we want to hear from the responding consultants and say, we have this ambitious and a little bit crazy plan, and it's important to us to get public input while we still maintain quality standards. What do you propose on that? And then that is one of the feedback questions we would pose to this group early on. This is what we heard from the consultants. This is what they propose for engagement. What does this group think? So let's get started.
Go ahead.
Thanks. one of the things we talked about in, I think, in some of the one-on-ones was also that it's a potential that these consultants could all be from the same organization.
Yes.
So, meaning, when we talk about hiring consultants for each of these initiatives, it may be one firm.
It would be, we think, easier to manage this if there was a firm
100%
that
agree. I
had-
want to
yeah.
make sure that's out there.
Yes.
I'm fully supportive of that. If we can find the right firm that has the ability that it's owned. The only other second point I would make, I don't know, maybe this is too early to start talking about this, but since public engagement, I feel like has been a concern, we should then be budgeting for communications. It's not just the way we have maybe done it before, that there should be I would say, an important budget for getting communications out on these things in perhaps a different or incremental, additional way than maybe we have in the past.
So one of the best examples of that is our 2016 Storm Water Utility SWU campaign that was tremendously enhanced for the same purposes
Yep.
and the same outcome, was to not just solicit input, but like
Yeah.
show the public, we heard you, this is what came back.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that was, to Commissioner Gilmartin's point, that was a significant line item
Yep.
budget for that.
All right, so I think if I'm reading the table right, thinking that everybody wants to move forward in varying degrees of enthusiasm, except Greg and I, who would like to move this thing in a more linear fashion. Is that about right?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
We gotta,
Yes.
we have to
Yes.
pick a direction here.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
this is Exhibit A.
I would prefer the innovative approach over a long time period, but I would like to get started.
Okay. You got that, Dave?
Yes.
Why don't you move on to your next subject?
We will do that, and Mr. Baker's going to help me by queuing me up. Okay, so the next step here is the direction we just received. Did I just do that one? Okay. So we're in a position now of moving forward to accept the long-range plan. So in the agenda packet was a complete draft of the 2023 to 2025 long-range plan. And I just want to walk through the executive summary here. It's a 40-some-odd page document. Commissioner Tully is demonstrating. Add some more charts and graphs. It'll be there. All right, so you may recall the long-range plan includes our strategic goals, identifies key trends and issues, develops strategies and solutions to address those key trends and issues, and what we just talked about, our priority action item and work plan for the next 18 to 24 months. As a reminder, we did go through and establish our strategic goals. There were significant changes in a couple of these. We added a new goal of a beautiful community, and we made modifications to this one, a safe and welcoming community. That's reflected in this draft report. I won't go through all these, but you may recall when we started these meetings back in May, we actually identified key trends and issues in the general fund, public safety, pension contributions, changes to the Civic Center financial plan, et cetera, et cetera. So won't go through them all here, but there was a substantial and significant list of conversations here that we went through. And that leads us to today, which we had confirmation of the list and the approach. If anybody has any questions about any portion of this draft long-range plan, we're happy to take those questions. We want to make sure as a staff that this long-range plan is the product of the council, and we get policy direction from the council on that. So, Mayor, if the council is feeling comfortable and in a position to make a motion to accept the plan, that would be great. And also, if the council would like additional time to consider this or propose any changes, that's also appropriate.
So we're picking up where we left off a half hour, 45 minutes ago. We got what we think is a process that will give us a reasonable chance of doing this, or at least a path we think we want to take. We want to take it on these steps, or do we want to add different steps, or do we want to change what's on the list? That's where we're at. So we can talk about process, but I don't see a lot of value in that anymore. We've kind of beat that horse. Does anybody want to change this list or not?
And also the entire plan.
Yeah, right.
I'm ready to go.
Didn't you say it was your list last time?
I'm ready to go.
Greg, you want to change anything, Greg?
Oh, I think I made it pretty clear. I'd like to change a few things.
That's why I'm asking you.
Hey, I can count.
Chris,
Yeah,
you
I
obviously
feel the
wanted
same way. There's some
to
things
talk
that
deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said my piece, and I think I'll look forward to the next time around, trying to get some of those added. But I appreciate the opportunity, and I think tonight's discussion on the process felt much better to me than last week, so I'm looking forward to much more of this type of discussion.
Anything?
This is my plan.
You gotta have something to add.
I don't have to.
Yes, you
Mayor, should we take some public comment?
We will. Leslie, you got anything you wanted to jump in on? No? Okay. All right, now. So what we've just gone through here is tedious but normal. It's frankly the process. It's how we do work here. We all wish it was faster, but it's hopefully enlightening and hopefully transparent, and hopefully everybody understands how we got here to this point. Comments about how we got here or what we're doing? Welcome any of them.
I'll speak up. Why not? Linda Trans. I'm very excited about this. When I looked at the website and took a look at, and I didn't have the background that obviously all of you have had, but I looked at it and I said, this is different. This is innovative. And so to see you actually most of you accepting it and wanting to go and run with it makes me very excited. I'm one of those people that doesn't want to do things like we've always done it in the past. There are other ways to do things. We don't always have to look to the past. And the other thing that's made me very happy tonight is I had been to the long-range planning session the last time we had one of these. And I came away from that kind of disappointed because I felt that we weren't looking to the future, that we were just trying to maintain the status quo. So to hear all of you talk about, being innovative, looking to do as much as we can quickly, it makes me very happy. So there you have it.
Okay. Others?
I'll disagree with everything everybody says. I'll give you one more thing to disagree with. I'm Robin Tryloff, I think everybody knows that. My professional experience has been in the arts, both in public and the private sectors. And so I'm here to hit my pitch one more time. I feel like Sisyphus. I've got The Rock. The Rock is public art, and I'm not quitting, just so you know. You'll keep hearing from me. I have to disagree with those who feel like addressing public art should happen after downtown. It's part of revitalizing downtown, which is one of the goals that you've got there. Frankly, public art is not innovative anymore. It's now a best practice. And we happen to be in a donut. There's public art in Westmont and Vermont and Lyle and Darien. There's a circle of public art, and we're the hole in the middle. Come here if you don't want to see public art. And I think that's a shame. I think it would provide great value to our downtown and to those who are terrified that something horrible would be painted on a wall. For those of us who care about public art, why would we shoot ourselves in the foot if we finally convinced you to allow public art in downtown by having something horrendous or horribly controversial or political or whatever? Our desire is to enhance the downtown, to invite people to come here, to show that we support the arts and that we see them as an integral part of our community, not an add-on if we sometime down the road in a couple of years have nothing better to do. So if the public art leasing program, which I think is interesting, I don't know the details of it, but it certainly would be interesting to learn more. If there's no time or money to do that, then change the sign ordinance language to allow public murals and let a nonprofit like the art committee handle both financially raising the money and putting the guidelines on what it would need to look like, running it through the council that's something, you know, if you want that level of approval, that's an option. There are many ways it could be done for the comfort level of those that are terrified of public art. I would encourage those who are terrified to drive around DuPage County and see all the public artwork and see how many things you find that are really scary. I don't think you'll find them. So my last point is simply that I have a long life of expertise in this field. I offer my expertise to the staff pro bono, if that would be helpful in any way, because I know time and money is a concern. You may criticize. Anything you want?
Well, it's hard to really talk about something if you don't know the details about it yet. I'm anxious to hear what your plans are with the downtown, the dining, outdoor dining, the landscaping. Will these all be discussed separately? I mean, will we have time to have input into that?
Yes.
Because my biggest concern right now, without knowing what the real plans are, is I have to ask how much is too much for downtown. We have, what, 3-4 blocks maybe maximum downtown, the core. And every time I drive through downtown, to me, it looks like a construction zone with all the barricades and the restaurants who have taken over most, at least last time I counted, 23 parking spaces downtown are now outdoor dining, which is public property, isn't it? I mean, now, the restaurants are benefiting pretty well. And I'm nothing, thank God we're able to help the restaurants. But when does that, is there an expiration date on that? Or is this permanent? Or is our downtown going to be outdoor dining? We're limited. Our downtown area isn't as wide as many towns around here. I mean, it's just the space that we have to work with. And every time I drive down there, trying to get through downtown with the 400 trains we get every day, and then the restaurants, and then trying to find parking for anybody down there, enough is enough. And now we're talking about outdoor. I don't know what your details are about the art. I'm an artist, so I'm not fighting that. But are we talking sculptures and things like that, which is more things for people to walk around and try to shop downtown, which what little shopping they have left? I'm very concerned about what your plans are for downtown. I think you're biting off maybe too much, and as far as there's just too limited what you can do, you know. And but right now, yeah, it needs an improvement because downtown is not a drag at all. And I wonder, do the restaurants contribute anything, or are they just getting this free restaurant space out of the spaces that they're using there? Is that just a gift? And how long is that going to be? Because they benefit, certainly. We all benefit from the taxes, obviously. But downtown has just turned into this kind of a maze anymore, and it's not attractive at all. And now you're talking about trying to improve it. I don't know what your plans are there. Again, I don't know what your plans are before I can really, visualize it. But anyway, I think it's enough of it is enough. You can't do all these things that you seem to be planning for downtown and how it's going to work. So that's my point.
What else?
My turn?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I enjoyed, I support many of them that you said. For the business owners, the professional people, with due respect to Mr. Davenport, your clients own what you do. They have direct input, all the way, specific direct input, and whatever it is that you come up with, they're going to own. Same with the business decisions. You're going to own them. There are 50,000 people in this town who are going to own whatever you decide. And I don't think, well, and I think your feedback loop thing is, I think you're planning what you want to do. And candidly, I don't think you give a rat's ass about what the rest of the community wants or thinks should happen. The outdoor dining, people I talk to were happy to support the restaurants during COVID, but we want our parking spaces back. We want to be able to shop downtown. and the community input from boards. Y'all have staffed the boards, presumably with people who relatively agree with you. I've got skills that would work on many of those boards, and I've offered to be part of it. Nada, that's okay, I got other things to do. But I think that you're going too fast. The decisions you make here, like Mr. Jose says, are going to be a lot of our money expended with decades of results and ramifications. And I've said this about, I mean, Maple Avenue was decades in the making. I don't even know if any of you all were on the board when that was all done, but no setbacks. Driving down Maple Avenue was like driving down a tunnel. People get claustrophobic, and my neighbor, you know, I talk to people, that's what they tell me. That's something that cannot be changed. And the stuff that you're going hell-bent for leather to put in place by the next election, and maybe y'all are confident that you're going to get reelected, is going to have lasting impacts that probably 49,000 of the 50,000 people don't care and don't want. So I just think that your focus is wrong. I think it's something that you should be more cognizant about, actually getting input from people, particularly on the south side, who don't care about downtown. Their tax money too. And I just think that this sounds all really good, and if you were private industry or private business and you were going to have to own the result for your own pocketbook, have at it. But I don't think you're going about this the correct way for as public representatives. Thank you.
Ken?
Ken Murder, Downers Grove. I've really enjoyed listening to the dialogue and the quality of discussion that's going around the table. And I really appreciate that we have a group of people who listen to one another and respond to one another and you know, bring up a lot of sensible points. And clearly there's a lot of recognition that this is an ambitious schedule and an ambitious list of things to do. And there's clearly also wide recognition that flexibility down the road will be necessary. In my working life, I used to work with a lot of military people. We've heard about not-for-profit model and business model and the public model, and the military model is its own thing. And the expression I always heard there was that no plan survives the first battle. And which is not a knock on planning in the least, but a recognition that plans always have to be adjusted after some experience is gained with implementation. So it's you know. So and I'm wondering if, based on hearing these discussions, if in order to accomplish this. These goals and this schedule, if it will be necessary to continue discussions of this type of format, where the village council meetings are broken up into two sessions, and with a kind of a business session and a discussion session afterwards. It seems like it's been very productive to get to where we are now. I'm wondering if it's going to, something like it might need to continue some of these discussions, especially on all the interrelated plans. And just one other thing, which is, we know we have a long list, but I think it's true that, for all of the 18 items and all the 29 items, they all came to your attention because of community interest in the first place. And whether, different segments have different agendas, the downtown businesses, the arts community, the village staff wanting to make things more efficient, the tree huggers like me had their own brought our own agenda, speaking of the arts community, if you want to see art downtown, there's the art festival this weekend.
Nice. There you go.
But to me, I think it, in some sense, being, taking a visionary and ambitious approach to this is being responsive to the community. These things are all on the list because people in the community are just interested in seeing something be done about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Carol Richard. I just wanted to kind of build on what Ken said and say that a lot of the community, like those of us in Greer Grove who pressed for sustainability, are also happy to help in any way, be on commissions or do research, talk to other towns. I have talked to somebody from Oak Park, and they've had a huge environmental change. And they started by interviewing and talking with groups in the community. And I'm just happy to see that our council wants to do that and offer that. I know people who, and you know people, who are more than willing to help. And I'm so glad you're doing the Fairview area. I lived near there, and it's needed help for a long time. Thanks.
Okay. One just closing sort of, I don't know, dotting the i's thing. This document, wherever the camera is, Village of Downers Grove 2023 to 25 Long Range Plan, September 5th, 2023, is available on our website. And it's important to look at it because in there are descriptions of what these things on this list are. What happened tonight, as a quick recap, is we decided that we would like to pursue these first 18 of the 29 first. And what that means is that they will go through a process of public input and public commentary before any decisions are made. A lot of the conversation tonight was, how are we going to accomplish that? So they're not defined per se, whatever it is, whether it's the tree ordinance or any of the other 18 items, they are described, what we're talking about, and they're going to go through a process of public engagement. And so everybody should stay engaged, but also read this. So you say, what are you talking about? This is what we're starting with to talk about. It's a process that's going to go on post-haste for a couple of years at least. Maybe it'll be 4. But it's going to be a continuous process. To Ken's point, it'll probably be a non-stop process. And we want everybody to be as involved as possible. We will, to Chris's point, certainly be trying to find ways to do that more. But it's, I think 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when we started this, one of the things I said back in the other room as I looked out at the audience and said, it's kind of on you too. And it is, to stay engaged and to stay involved and to follow what's going on. Don't come 6 months later and say, wait, what the heck? And this is going to be a constantly moving thing, and it'll all be available for everybody to participate in. So, you need a motion? We would like to have a motion tonight to accept this plan.
Mayor, I move to accept the 2023 to 2025 long-range plan as presented.
Second.
Just because we're supposed to. Any conversation? Any comments from the council, other than Chris?
Commissioner Jose spoke 3 times as much as I was counting. I counted all 18.
Seriously, any last comments before we?
It's all been said.
All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Would you just write 6-1? It's 5-2. Guys, thank you all for participating tonight and for digging in, and thank you all for staying with us. There'll be a lot more coming.
And also, there is a coffee with the council this morning, or Saturday
morning?
Not this morning. It has been a long day. I went to work to hockey to here. But no, it's Saturday morning at 9.
So, motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's 7-0. We're adjourned.
That one down there.